it's amazing how you feel sympathy for him when you know like how privileged he is, how bad of a person.
Yeah. Don't forget they all end up with billions, so don't feel too bad for them.
Right.
Exactly.
So even though they've lost, they really haven't lost.
No, they haven't.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to Operation Tomatometer,
The Classic's most tomatastic film interview podcast.
My name is Nameera, I'm a senior.
My name is Elliot, and I'm also a senior.
I'm Nadia, I'm a returning host.
My name is Devin, I'm a senior, and today we're joined by a very special guest, Kara Swisher, the host of HBO Succession podcast. Thank you for joining us, Kara.
I'm glad to be here. I can't believe young people watch Succession, but okay. I thought it was only old white men, but okay.
Yeah, you can tell we're obsessed. I have the shirt.
What does it say? What does that say?
And all their names, Kendall and Rose.
Oh, yeah. Shiv, Connor, Cousin Greg.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's dive into it. What you
Okay.
about Succession from the beginning to the end? Like, how's it started off for you guys? But this like really magnetic show, like really into it, you know?
Okay, I feel like we should throw this over to Elliot. He watched it before any of us.
Yeah.
So I started watching Succession when I was a freshman in high school.
Mhm.
So I was 14, and only 2 seasons were currently out. And then I love the show. It was just incredibly riveting plot lines, so dramatic, and also very funny as well. So I was just immediately compelled by it. I think just what drew me to it above a lot of shows is just the parallels to draw between the Succession world and real life. Like, it's just a very realistic show. Even, there's all this drama, all this, billionaire, rich people life that you see that you're not necessarily used to, but it just makes so much sense when you sort of compare it to the political world, what's happening now with income, all these things. So I just like how it explores these characters so deeply, even though they're so apart, I guess, from the
Although they're a lot like you and I too in different ways. The weaknesses, one, he doesn't protect you from weakness or avarice, essentially. And so they've certainly grown up rich, all of them, and the father made his money, so he was sort of a rapacious personality. They're all versions of us, and that's why I think it's appealing to regular people. It's not just to look at their planes, or their apartments, their luxurious apartments. It's also because it's about families, really.
Right. I also find that the most compelling. That's the core of the show. Of course, there's all the business and the ultimate question: who will be the next CEO?
Mhm.
But after Elliot had recommended Succession to me, and I knew that it was such a great show, and I knew I should jump on it. Watching the pilot and then ending with Logan's him in the hospital, I think that was also so riveting, seeing them all fight over who now will become CEO after Ken got stripped from him. But then we also see, like you mentioned, just the core family relations to each other, and it's just the writing is beautiful, and I think it's great. I know everyone praises it for never doing any flashbacks, and I think it's wonderful that in spite of no flashbacks, we also have such a clear painted picture of what their childhoods were like. That's wonderful.
Yeah, they do talk about it, and you do see the scars on Logan's back at one point, and they don't explain it. You don't really have to understand that he was beaten somewhere where he lived, probably when he was a kid, probably in school would be my guess. But one of the things that's nice about it is that it's about, even though again it's about family, it's about what happens when lack of love occurs, and that everything is replaced by a succession battle in order to get the biggest job. That's what love is in this world of the Roys, is getting to the top and proving themselves to their dad is love for them, even though it's a warped version of love.
Considering this and considering what has been built in the first 3 seasons and then jumping to the 4th season and this warped version of love, I think it's interesting to consider now where all of these siblings have ended up in their aspirations of succeeding their father, and Kendall in that room with Shiv and Roman fighting for him being CEO, saying this is what dad would have wanted in terms of bloodline. I think it'd be interesting to get some of your insight in terms of, now we'll never know what Logan thinks of his children now and what.
Oh, you kind of do. He does say it. He said, I love you, but you're not serious people. I don't think he thought any of them were worthy. And that's what Roman was articulating in a very difficult way, is we don't have it. We have no abilities. Even if we were bred for it, we can't keep up. And they were always trying to keep up and always failing, sometimes succeeding in small ways. But I think the realization by Shiv and Roman that they don't have it, any of them, especially Kendall, just because he was told by his father when he was young, doesn't mean they should have the job. And I think that's what the realization of that is one of the last scenes is that they didn't have what it took to win. They almost won. They certainly almost won, but I think they all imagined a life if Kendall had won, which I don't think they thought they'd do better with this other guy.
And then there's that pinnacle moment with Shiv where you can sort of see the realization on her face in that pivotal scene in the last episode of the season, where you can sort of see just the way Kendall acts, I guess, and just like his whole demeanor about the thing, like he has it in his mind that he's going to win, he's going to be CEO, that he's won. And then I think Shiv just can't fathom that. Like
it's his confidence was based out of desperation. He had to win since he had nothing else. He had sort of betrayed everybody in his life, including his own family, his own kid, actually. And she actually comes to realization a little bit earlier. If you go back and watch it, when he puts the feet on the desk, she really has a bad reaction to that. And she's such a gifted actor, Sarah Snook, that you see it, especially if you know what happens later. Going back to see it, you can see her making a decision then is when she made it.
Right. I had that like written down in my notes. I think that moment, like just the blocking and the movements and the way like Jeremy Strong, the way he acted physically, putting his feet up, I think that's a great moment. And I've seen, of course, on social media, people contest Shiv's reasons why. And I love that there are so many interpretations as to why she retracted her vote and voted against him in the end. I think just arriving as one of her reasons being that she just couldn't fathom. I think the line where she says, "I love you, but I just cannot stomach you." I think that's such a great line because while there's so many factors into it, I think one main reason being that she just can't accept that Kendall will win. I think that's great.
Well, it's also she's been disrespected by both her brothers, when they had the troika for the most of the season, and she knows her better chance for power is with Tom because she's proven she can manipulate him. Even though he seems ascendant, he's lost because he's given up everything. He's let Matsson say terrible things about his wife, and he accepts it in order to get the job. And so he's a doormat and a pain sponge is what he is. And so she feels her chances are better fighting with him than it is with anybody else.
I also feel like, coming from season 1 all the way to season 4, it's almost as if like the series kind of went full circle, especially with the character of Kendall and how, in season 1, there was that sort of first boardroom battle, and then that comes back to this boardroom battle. And in both instances, it didn't work out for him. And, I feel like, especially reflecting back on season 1 while looking at season 4, I felt like it was just really interesting to see how, despite how much has changed, through the different seasons, in the end, it's the same outcome.
Yeah, because he's unable to attain the credibility that he wishes he had. The only thing he did was get born. That's really his only qualification is birth. And, that happens a lot in today's companies. Lots of companies that people got their jobs. Sometimes they're very competent, like at the New York Times, but they got their job by being born, essentially. Same thing with the Murdochs and at some of the Redstone's companies. His daughter wouldn't have been qualified at all for this job without the birthright. And so that doesn't tend to work out really well, even if you have someone who might be talented, but is certainly not more talented than someone else.
So we're getting really deep into character, and I want to ask you guys all a question, like who are your favorite characters, least favorite characters, and why? Like what's really the driving factor behind your opinions here?
I feel like I was always drawn. I mean, obviously these are all bad, broken people, but I think I was always drawn a little bit to Kendall. It might just be how Jeremy Strong acts as
it's a great actor.
Yeah, exactly. He's just puts on a stunning performance as him, but just like the growth that you see in Kendall, just like the clear like pain you can see like on his face when he just experiences all the, again, like Devin was saying, from season 1 to season 4, whether it's like his 40th birthday party or these tragic board meetings that go wrong, you can just always like see just he really does have a tragic story, and it's amazing how you feel sympathy for him when like how privileged he is, how bad of a person.
Yeah, don't forget they all end up with billions, so don't feel too bad for them.
Right.
Exactly.
So even though they've lost, they really haven't lost.
No, they haven't.
Exactly. No. In terms of speaking of our favorite characters and kind of touching on what you just mentioned, how the Roys have birth as kind of their only qualification. My favorite character is Tom Wambsgans.
Oh.
And speaking of qualifications, it kind of makes sense. It's a twist, but at the same time, you almost see it coming because throughout the entire season, he keeps referencing how tired he is. And at one point, in retrospect, you note that Matsson says, "I don't think I've ever met anyone that I respect that has ever gotten good sleep." And so it makes sense. All the puzzle pieces fit together that he's missed the funeral to keep working.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Kendall in the first episode, Celebration, misses work to go to Logan's birthday party. So it's kind of these parallels to show how much more qualified Tom Wambsgans is. And so I think it's just great that in the end, it goes to an outsider who has always felt like an outsider from the Roys. I think it just aligns perfectly.
For my favorite character, I'd definitely say Logan, just because, just because of how like big of a figure he is, not only in the family, but also on the business side of things. And also because, even when he's like, spoiler, even when he's not there, I remember one of my favorite scenes from season 4 was the funeral, and just seeing like how many people were just affected, especially Roman, seeing his reaction. For number one, it was like, it showed me just how big of a figure and how central he was to, everything in the show, and how, despite how we see Kendall's character development, he's that sort of one stable rock there. And when we take that away, we just see how the show unravels.
Chaos and cold.
Exactly.
And what about you, Kara?
No, what about you first?
No, I'm going to be asking the questions. It's okay.
All right, okay. I like all the side characters. I think I've met a lot of them, having covered corporate politics and corporations a lot. The Jerrys, the PR woman, the PR man. I'm blanking on their names now. Of course, they're wonderful. I think all the side, Frank and the other guy, I like them. I think they gave a lot of room to the side characters who facilitate, and the minions who facilitate them. It's very easy to focus on them, but one of the things I thought Jesse Armstrong did so well was he gave meaty roles to everybody. There's nobody that doesn't come across with some kind of noticeable talent. I suppose the biggest one is Jerry. I think that character I've met that character a million times in my course of my reporting career. That's where they really depict, real people, how they act among the rich as sort of functionaries for the rich, or hand servants really to the rich people.
So you guys are all talking a lot about the viewing experience, and I want to shift the conversation towards like cinematography and like the visual storytelling of Succession. Are there any moments that stood out to you? Anything that you guys really appreciated? I want to start off with you, Kara.
Sure. I think that's not my area of expertise, but I think some of the things they were doing was making these people's worlds smaller and smaller over time. Even though they're in private jets or cashmere everywhere or these beautiful apartments, they're meant to feel suffocating. They're meant to feel smaller and smaller and smaller spaces. And at the very end, it's only Roman who's outside in a bar, actually. The rest of them are ensconced in a car. They're often in cars or going from cars to planes. So I think that visually they were trying to create these prisons, these prisons for that these people refuse to leave. And I think that was great. I think the use of places like Norway, I think they were in, and Italy, they weren't enjoying those beautiful places, right? They just go there into another beautiful place and leave to another beautiful place, but never in. And I think that was articulated by Matsson. I bought this house for whatever tens of millions of dollars, and I never even look at the view. This is at Lake Como where he's at that beautiful home. And so things don't matter to them, and beauty doesn't matter to them, and anything in the outside world doesn't matter. Only thing that matters is the deal.
I kind of want to touch on that because I think it's also I guess as another reason, just because they're used to wealth, right? Used to sort of like luxury. So
sure.
The lay person, a middle class or working class person would just be completely in awe by like this grand ballroom or dining room, when it's just their normal habitat, their normal setting, right? So I think it might also be attributed to that as well. It's their normal, like the cinematography doesn't need to point to all this, luxurious wealth, because it's not really their perspective on that.
Sure, absolutely. But it's meant to show that even in these luxury settings, and I talked to the directors and Jesse about this, it's meant to show how without color it is. And if you notice, Matsson wears a lot of color. He brings in color to the place. And so that's an interesting, you may not notice it, but that's exactly what's happening there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to point out how, like, talking about Elliot's point, how, the character of Greg, how that sort of plays into this, and how, I remember that scene, I'm not sure what season it was from, but when Tom takes Greg out for the first time to like one of those like really bougie restaurants, and sort of capturing his reaction and sort of the way he didn't really understand the mannerisms of the you know, this upper class living that he really never was exposed to. And
Sure.
highlighting that and highlighting how sort of Greg also kind of gets corrupted over time, especially as he gets closer and closer and understands like the sort of company and also family values. That's why Greg, I know I said Logan was one of my favorite characters, but Greg is probably number 2.
Yeah, he's certainly a memorable character.
Definitely. Just to like talk about our favorite character, Greg, again for a minute. I think just talking about the Tom and Greg dynamic over the 4 seasons and how they've been such a duo that kind of always has each other's backs, and while they do backstab, again, they keep coming back to each other. And how, in spite of Greg's betrayal, so to speak, in the finale, Tom once again affixes a sticker to an object he covets on Greg's forehead, which I thought was really monumental for the relationship.
Sure.
I know some people were confused by why he would do that, and then people keep trying to interpret Tom's actions in that scene. So if you would like to shed some light on the Tom and Greg dynamic.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a really fantastic relationship. It's so explicit that Tom can be as obsequious to people above him and cruel to people below him. So he's kind of a sadist and a masochist at the same time. And so, I think they both need each other. Obviously, Greg is enormously ambitious, is willing to suck it up. He's like a mini Tom, essentially. And he's cruel to people below him, too, if you notice. And I think it's a perfect, that's really the love relationship of this thing in the warped way that it is love. He certainly can't do that with Shiv. He still wouldn't. Well, even though he's CEO and he's trying, I've got the car, and when he reaches his hand out, she only places it on top. She doesn't touch him. I mean, she lightly places it on top, which is a really interesting power game on her part. She doesn't grasp him in any way. And so with Greg, he knows that he's got him. Even if he betrays him, he's his creature, his Igor, essentially. Did you like the end? Did you all like the end?
I was satisfied.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And you understand that it has to end the show, but it's such a wonderful show that
maybe there'll be another movie. There might be a movie. There's been rumors of that. He's left it so he could, if he wanted to, you could find out what happens to them, or you can just guess yourself, like, where do they end up? And in Shiv's case, does she continue to try to machinate with her husband, or does she just use the billions to do whatever she wants? Probably the first. And with Roman, he's in a bar and he seems somewhat happy, although a lot of unhappiness goes over his face. That is really great. If you can go back and look at that again, you probably didn't pay as much attention, but he's not entirely happy at all. And of course, Kendall, you don't know what's going to happen to him. Connor will probably be okay. He has billions. They all have billions. So I don't feel sorry for what sometimes when an internet mogul that I cover loses, they're like, oh, I feel bad. I'm like, they have billions, like Travis Kalanick, who started Uber, truly awful person. And they're like, do you feel bad? I'm like, no, he has billions that he was fired. I'm like, not even slightly. So that's just, remember, these people, don't feel sorry for them.
So I think the ending is just a wonderful open-ended. And if we do get a movie, we'll find out. But I think we're in a great stasis, a great stage where the fans can just guess. And we have enough clues, but there you go.
There you go. By the way, there's nothing to all those other conspiracy theories about that baseball player and all that stuff with Tom Womp. It's just not true. None of that is true. But whatever. People can enjoy it any way they want. But I can tell you that they weren't meaning it to be that way. But that's fine. That's what's great about great shows.
But thank you so much, Kara. I'm afraid
thank you.
And we have for today. But I'm telling you, thank you so much for your enlightenment.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you. Good luck with all your careers, your college careers. Where are you all going?
Okay. I'll be at Columbia University.
Cool. I went there for journalism school.
Oh, cool.
I'll be at Yale University in the fall.
Which one?
Yale.
Yale. Oh, nice. I've heard of that. Yeah, heard of that.
I'll be at Yale as well with Nameera.
Oh, cool.
I just finished my first year in college. I'm at School of Visual Arts.
Oh, cool. That's great. Well, you should have a great time there. I didn't get into Yale, by the way, but I did okay. Anyway, it's great.
So thank you all for tuning in to Operation Tomatometer. This is Nameera signing out.
Let's give a round of applause.
And Nadia, are we signing out?
Yeah, re-signing out.
Returning guests.
It's been wonderful to be back.
Make sure to watch Kara's podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and tune in for our next episode next year. Bye.
Season 3 coming soon.
Yes.
We won't be here. Bye.